Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I am here with everybody's favorite guest, the Dean of Student Engagement, Adrienne Thoman. Adrienne, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, and that is the best introduction. Always makes my day.
I don't know, on the Pirate Life podcast, your colleagues often give you a pretty darn good introduction.
I don't know. They're also very mean to me. They make fun of my jokes and...
On the last podcast, I got to read the pirate joke, and it got a very good reception.
I know. I think we're going to keep you as our joke deliverer.
I'll tell you what, that is something I would happily do. You guys get on me sometimes because I don't necessarily participate in the discussion on the show, but I've always looked at it as if I'm the producer, this is your show. You know, I'm not a pirate. I'm
a pirate,
I'm an
Paul.
honorary pirate.
You are a pirate.
But I'm not one of the original three. And so I don't want to cloud the show with any comments that I have. I've got enough of an outlet to have my opinions, so I try to just stay behind the scenes. But I do appreciate that you try to involve me. But I will gladly take over the pirate joke. For sure. I don't want to read any that you've already done. I can't remember every single pirate joke you've given in your 50 episodes.
Well, you know, I have that problem too.
Well, we will certainly talk about that. And you can check out Adrienne's podcast, the Pirate Life podcast, just celebrated its 50th episode. So that's a major milestone.
I can't believe it. It went so fast.
Would actually probably would have been faster if it wasn't for COVID, because I know that you didn't necessarily release at the schedule that you would have liked to when all of that first happened. So, we have a chock full show as we come back here for the summer term here at Central Penn College. Lots to discuss, and as always, the calendar is full. We are going to start bringing Adrienne back a little bit more frequently, but for this time around, this will be Adrienne's foray into the nightly news for the term. So we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about stuff throughout the whole term, and I want to start with something that both you and I are very active with, and that is the Raise the Roof philanthropic campaign that Central Penn College will be engaging in between now and the end of the year. So for those who maybe are new to the school or maybe didn't hear about what we did last year, do you want to just kind of share how this all got started and you know, what some of the things were that happened last year in a major positive way for those with hunger insecurity in the area?
First of all, as part of the college's strategic plan, they wanted to create an annual philanthropic initiative. And Paul and I got to be part of the task force that got to create the process for figuring out what that would be. And last year was our very first year, and we did combat hunger. So it started with a brainstorming meeting and ended up with us kind of buried in canned goods at the end of the year, which was pretty amazing.
It was an amazing sight when I remember, I didn't necessarily do the sorting at the very end, but you and I and Curtis and several others were responsible for collecting the cans around campus and taking them to our storage area. And it was at that last week, I'll never forget, Adrienne, like how unbelievable it was, the amount of food and support that we'd gotten from all college constituents all across campus and friends and family of students and faculty and staff. It was pretty amazing what we ended up with.
Oh, and I loved how excited and enthusiastic everybody was to be involved in it. The competition between the teams was really great, and everybody, I think, really had a good time participating in the campaign.
And so it's something that we're going to be doing every single year. It benefited an organization in each of the counties that we serve, a majority of students. So I think it's 9 local counties that we are participating with. So we find an organization in each county to support. So we just try to spread the wealth a little bit. So we're doing it again this year. And this year we decided on housing insecurity as the issue of focus for our philanthropic campaign.
And we say we, but it actually is a process of soliciting suggestions from the entire campus community and then our Central Penn College cabinet.
Absolutely. Yeah,
decision.
And we actually we went through a situation where we went through a variety of different campaigns and made the case for those campaigns, and of course had the opportunity to share that around campus and have suggestions, to your point, from people all over campus. So this is a collective effort when it comes to trying to decide to what type of cause that we are going to support. So the campaign is already kicked off. We already have some donations rolling in, both monetary and not only just food, although we are collecting food. Certainly all types of other things that you can donate. And you've already had a drive-in drop-off event that was very successful as well, Adrienne.
Oh my gosh, it's always so much fun. The students come, we hang out all day, we get to meet people from the public that stop in and see us, and it was a good day.
And it's awesome that we are able to feel more comfortable about that now, inviting people who, we don't know to our campus in order to, obviously for a little while there it was a little dicey, but we are so happy that we were able to welcome the public back. And we did that last term with our CPC film series, which we'll be talking about this term's effort. But before we get off of the philanthropic initiative, I know that you have another drive-in drop-off event coming up. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
It's going to be Saturday, July 31st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're looking for volunteers. So if you have any students, faculty, or staff that want to join us for an hour or 4 hours or whatever you want to do, we would love to have you come and join us. We really have a lot of fun. And if you aren't interested in volunteering, but if you're in the area and you're willing to drop off, we're collecting, oh my goodness, shampoo and deodorant and underwear and socks. Everything needs to be new, but any of those items, think of the things that you use in your daily getting ready in the morning kind of stuff, and that's what we'll be collecting.
So it's Saturday, July 31st, drive-in drop-off event for the Raise the Roof Philanthropic Initiative here at Central Penn College. I'm sure we'll be talking about that throughout the rest of the term. And Adrienne, I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to be on that committee together, and it's obviously something we're both very passionate about. Interestingly enough, because of last year's philanthropic initiative, I did about 6 months of volunteering at the New Hope Ministries, and it's something that is unbelievably rewarding, especially when you get to meet some of the people who the goods are going to. I mean, we New Hope was one of our partners that we did with our previous philanthropic initiative, and the fact that I got to go in there and work, and this was during the pandemic, and to see the people who you're actually helping, it was amazing. And I'm so glad that I had that opportunity, and certainly looking forward to doing some more volunteering this year.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, the second thing that we wanted to talk about here is something that's coming new to the campus, and that's Pride Week. Adrienne, tell us a little bit more about Pride Week that's coming up this term.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited that we finally have our first official Pride Week at Central Penn College. It's going to be in July, the 26th to the 30th, and we're doing a full week of programming. It's a collaboration. We have our counseling office helping, a number of students helping to put this together. Raven, Jacob, we're so glad to have you. It's going to be, I think, an amazing week. Everything from a movie night to drag queen bingo to a make one, take one. Going to be a lot of different things that we're going to be doing to celebrate our LGBTQIA students.
I think that that's something that is going to be really interesting. We've had some unbelievable weeks in the past. We just, in spring term, had the Sexual Assault Awareness Week, which was unbelievably eye-opening. I got to go to the hunting ground screening, and I got to tell you, like, as somebody who is sending a daughter away to college this year, it was a frightening movie to watch. And I'm just so glad that not only, I know Megan Peterson did a lot with that week, and I'm so glad that she was there, but obviously I know that there's a lot of other people that went into making that week work, but it was a wonderful week in as far as spreading awareness to such an important topic.
And kudos to Kayla for her courage and her bravery to share her own story at the opening of that screening.
and that was one of the other things that I wanted to talk about. I've known Kayla for a long time, just covering athletics, and she's been here for a little while. The courage that she had to do that and to self-disclose. And from what I understand, she wanted to do this, and that's just not something that everybody has the courage to do. So I give her all the credit in the world for helping, because you know what, to watch a movie like that can move people to make a change. But when you hear a friend, or if nothing else, a classmate or colleague say what and disclose what she disclosed about her experiences with sexual assault, it's all the more moving. And it was something where I give her all of the credit in the world for taking that initiative to what she did. So Pride Week should be maybe a little bit different of a tone, hopefully. But again, spreading that awareness is what I think is really important. And I'm glad that this is something that we're doing moving forward. So awesome. All right, well, the last thing, this is just sort of a little teaser here, Adrienne. My class, Current Strategies in Electronic Media Programming, are doing documentary films as their final project this term.
That is a very cool project.
It is. I don't know how much they're going to like it because it's a lot of work.
What do you mean? You know
it's
what,
a lot
though?
of work. That's why.
When I was a comm major, we had to make, it wasn't a documentary, but we had to make some kind of video. We ended up doing a sketch comedy show, but I will never forget the experience. It was a ton of work, but I'll never forget the process and the things that we did to build it. Permanently ingrained in my memory. Super cool experience, and you're building that for your students now.
That's what I'm hoping. And you know, like, if nothing else, when I did my documentary, it's something that I'll always have. It's something that I'll always be able to look back at. It's something I'll always be able to watch, and I want them to engage in this type of thing. So I have already reached out to all of them before the term even started and said, look, we got to have an idea. Like, you have to come into this class with some type of idea of what you're going to work on, because we're going to hit the ground running, because it's only 11 weeks. And basically what I'm doing is an overview of my pre-production and my production classes at my level, at the PhD level, over 6 months. They're going to be doing it in 11 weeks.
That's amazing.
Now I've cut down tremendously, and it's a little bit smaller of a scale. But the long story short is, during week 11, we're going to do a little mini film fest that our co-president Janelle Dulac is going to put on, and we are really, really excited for that. So please make sure that you save the date for September 14th at noon. From noon to 2, we'll be doing a mini film fest, and we will certainly give you more details of what's going on with that in the coming weeks. So
I cannot wait to see what their topics are.
So what we're going to do is each person from the class is going to screen their film. I'm asking that all the students be there. It is an online class, so we'll probably have a lot of people joining us virtually. But I want everyone to kind of give, a 2-minute discussion about what they went through, and then talk about what their film's about. And then Jen has also done a documentary that she did in one of her other classes for Penn Studios. So we're going to screen that. And then if there's time, maybe we'll watch the final out documentary at the end, so we can say that it's been screened here on campus. Because
you totally have to do it. Yet
to have been shown here on campus so far.
When did we do it? We did it virtually.
Yeah. Yeah, so we haven't. And that was one thing that you said right after that is, hey, we got to make sure we get this screened on campus. So this is hopefully the opportunity to do so, or maybe we start off the show with it. I don't know. This is going to be Jen's production, so we're going to see what she has to say.
All right.
So keep the date for the Film Fest, Student Film Fest, September 14th from noon to 2. All right. Well, Adrienne, that brings us to our favorite segment of the show, Adrienne's Featured 3 events for the summer term. Adrienne, what is the first event on Adrienne's Featured 3?
So I'm going to do that thing where I cheat again. So my first thing is going to be Welcome Week inclusive, which includes a number of events. So I'm kind of cheating, but it's all right. We're going to roll with it, right?
100%.
Okay. So Welcome Week. We're going to have our students returning to campus. We're excited to have everybody here. We have a lot happening. We're going to do Pancakes with the President Wednesday morning, July 7th. It's going to be from 9 to 11 in the ATEC lobby. I love this. I love that our college president takes the time to literally flip pancakes in the lobby and get to connect with all of the students. I think it's pretty incredible. It's a great morning. So definitely make a point to stop out and join us and have a pancake.
Awesome.
Okay, so we're also going to do that Thursday night. Colleges Against Cancer, one of our student clubs here, is going to do a bonfire, s'mores, and hope night. It's going to be down in our fellowship area from 6 to 8. And the amazing Carly from the American Cancer Society is going to come to join us to share a little bit about the message of the American Cancer Society and Relay for Life. Should be a really fun night. So we're going to want to make sure students come to that. And then week 2, on Tuesday, July the 13th, we're actually going to do our back to class blast from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Depending on the temperature, hopefully outside if it's a beautiful day. If not, we're going to be in the conference center. But this is a great opportunity for new and returning students to connect with our student clubs, with our student services, various offices on campus. We have live music, we have food. Our Armed Forces Association, I believe, is going to be grilling for us again. So that's always a blast. So make sure you check that out too.
Astute listeners, Adrienne, would note that the Back to Class Blast is typically week 1. What happened here?
It typically is. So our new students are going to have special meetings with their faculty and staff on the Thursday during the common hour.
Gotcha.
So we're going to give them that opportunity to connect with their faculty. They'll be talking about kind of the progression through their program and the night path and things like that. So we moved to week 2 for this time around, but I expect us to be week 1 again in the fall.
One thing that I am looking so forward to, Adrienne, is Common Hour. The fact that I can invite all of my students, and certainly my on-ground students, aren't going to have to worry about coming or going to class is a serious game changer for our clubs, and I think it should really, really help. All right, Adrienne, what's event number 2 on Adrienne's featured 3 for the summer term?
Go Knights! We got our home soccer games! I am super excited to actually be able to, I might be too soon to say post-COVID. I know we're not through COVID completely, but it is just so nice to be able to be doing some of these things that we've missed out on. So our home soccer games, our first men's home soccer game is going to be September 9th, and our first women's home soccer game is going to be September 11th. Definitely come out and cheer for our teams. Super pumped to see. We have a new men's soccer coach, and we have Ubaldo returning for our women's team. So going to be a great season, I think.
And this is really unfortunate because neither soccer team got to play last year. Neither basketball team got to play last year. So it's going to be really exciting to see what the teams have, how the teams have changed composition, because, they basically haven't played in a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point. Keep in mind the soccer season does go from September in through the end of October. We will have soccer not only in the summer term, but also in the fall term. So keep your eyes out for the soccer schedule, and you can also go to centralpennknights.com for all of these athletics information, schedules, and where that. And of course, they play just locally here, right at Adams Rickey Park. So
which is so nice.
It's less, probably not more than a mile away from campus. So shouldn't be too tough for us to get there and support our Knights. All right, Adrienne, what's the third event on Adrienne's featured 3 for the summer term?
Well, I know this one is near and dear to your heart, but our Central Penn College film series is going to be July the 30th, and we are watching Scott Pilgrim versus
The World. And I must say that Leslie Heimbaugh is going to be presenting this. Obviously, she is our CPC film series correspondent and will be the first student to present. Now, where this came from is Leslie presented Get Out last year. Unfortunately, this was during COVID, and she was under the weather, and she was unable to be here physically, and which devastated her. Now, she did a presentation. The presentation was excellent, but she just wasn't there physically, so we wanted to give her another shot. Also, Leslie does happen to be graduating here very soon, so we want to make sure to take advantage of her where we can, but she is going to be here presenting Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and hopefully in person this time.
Yeah.
I must say, just as a follow-up, I did League of Their Own, and it was such a wonderful evening. I've gotten so much wonderful feedback on that from the people who were there. It was such a fun time, not without technical difficulties.
Oh my goodness, the technical difficulties. I'm not ready to do an outdoor movie in a while. It was bad tech problems.
Adrienne, everything worked out perfectly.
Oh my goodness.
There is absolutely nothing. We tried, we learned, and if we were to do that again, we'll have to go in a little bit different of a direction. And mainly had to do with things that were out of our control, namely the light outside.
Electricity, yes. We had this super cool blow-up
It was
screen.
awesome.
It was amazing, but unfortunately we had only one electrical outlet. And when the lights turned on, wiped everything out. We tried.
Hey, honestly, I think it was one of the most memorable days of my life. And so the fact that the theater was all ready to go, and to do is go pop a movie in, everything was good. No worries. And I just appreciate all of your hard work, but it was a memorable night. And I've heard, I didn't actually go around and count, but I've heard several people came up to me and said between 70 and 80 people were there. So that's
great.
Just an unbelievable turnout, especially. And it was right, as things are warming up, COVID numbers are going down, people felt more comfortable coming out. So I certainly hope that you save the date for July 30th. Now, we are going to have a little outdoor. The movie's not going to be outdoor. The movie will be in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. But just outside, there is an area in the quad area that we're going to be able to set up We'll have some games and some food and snacks and stuff before Leslie gives her presentation. She's going to give it outside, and then weather permitting, of course, and then we're going to head into the theater and watch the movie.
Yeah.
So
and Gamma Beta
really
Phi,
excited.
in which Leslie is our vice president.
Absolutely, Gamma Beta Phi is sponsoring. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what they come up with. But just remember, that is Friday night, July 30th, and that'll start at around 6 o'clock. So be sure to come out to the CPC Film Series Summer Edition. All right, Adrienne, let's do the rundown here. Where do we want to start?
Oh, my goodness.
All right.
Welcome week.
Well, we'll get to your featured 3 here in just a moment. All right, so just as a little recap, we're going to start off with the Raise the Roof philanthropic campaign. Of course, that's going to be running on all summer and fall terms, but keep in mind and save the date for the drive-in drop-off event on Saturday, July 30th. You can also keep your calendars open for Pride Week, which will take place here on the campus of Central Penn College and virtually July 26th through the 30th. And finally, save the date for the mini film festival, student film festival, that will be happening on September 14th. That's a Tuesday from noon to 2. Adrienne's featured 3 are Welcome Week, including Pancakes with the President on July 7th from 9 to 11. The Colleges Against Cancer Bonfires S'mores Evening, which will be July 8th from 6 to 8. And, of course, the Back to Class Blast. That'll be Tuesday, July 13th from 11 to 1. Keep in mind, men's soccer home opener is September the 9th, and women's home opener is September 11th. And finally, the CPC film series on Friday, July 30th at 6 o'clock. So we got a lot going on this term, Adrienne, and of course, it's always a major thank you because you're the one that's often putting on all of these events, and it's wonderful that the students have such an amazing opportunity to not only just engage with their friends, but also to engage with maybe bring people into campus, show them around. And I think all of these events are going to be fantastic. And certainly if there's anything we can do to help, we would be happy to.
I appreciate that.
Of course.
Looking forward to seeing everybody.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I want to thank the Dean of Student Engagement, Adrienne Thoman, for being here today. But we'll see you again next time. For Professor Paul Miller, we'll see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.
Hey, this is Sai Pinthong. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and we are back here for our first episode of the summer term here in 2021. We will be back to full-time. We're going to be doing 6 podcasts a term. They're going to be coming out every other Tuesday, starting week 1. So what better place to start in this summer term than having our esteemed co-advisor for the Nightly News, Michael Lear-Olimpi, on his first ever podcast. Mike, it's been over 135 podcasts, and we've never had you on the show before. What gives?
I like to focus on the students and other people who are more important than I am, Paul. But thanks for having me on. Even though I'm co-advisor, it's good to be here.
I have students on every single podcast. I'm getting them some experience as well. So no, I appreciate it. And what's one of the best things that I personally like about our working relationship in the Nightly News is you are very, very focused on the written portion, and I'm focused on the audio broadcast portion. But of course, we are both knowledgeable in the subject, and we both are there for one another if something comes up or something like that. So
yeah, it's a good relationship that way. It's balanced.
Well, one of the things that we want to talk about, and we will talk about later in the show, is our new blog site at cpcnightlynews.com.
Ta-da.
And we're really excited about that. We're going to talk a lot more about that later in the show. But Mike, one of the things I want to talk about, since we're spanning back to 2015.
August of 2015, yep.
When the Nightly News Media Club started here at Central Penn College. So really what I want to do is take some time to kind of give some retrospective to some of your areas that you take away and some memories that you have of the club, and maybe give some shout-outs. And I also want to talk about the Nightly News Hall of Fame. One of the things we talked about in our most recent meeting is that we are going to have an official Hall of Fame induction here later this year. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to spoil anything because we haven't really decided who is going to be inducted at this point, but we want to talk a little bit more about that.
That's why it's called news.
So, well, I do want to kind of jump in a time machine back to 2015. At the time, I was a part-time instructor, and you had already been here for several years. And one of the things that we noticed together was that we had, a wonderful program, great classes, but we never had that hands-on opportunity to have our students engaging in things. Now, on one hand, we are a corporate communication program. So for those of you who are maybe not familiar with that nomenclature, it's really talking about public relations. And obviously we have a lot of journalism classes in our major, but there still are some broadcast classes, and it also is a way for students to develop their portfolios. When you first got here, was it surprising to you that we didn't have any avenues, written, video, or audio for our students to engage with at that point?
It was surprising. I was taken aback by the fact that we didn't have a radio station. Then I learned we had a radio station, and we gave it up. Let's not get into the whole history of that. It would take too long. So we didn't have a radio station. We also had no means of video production unless we were using a smartphone or a handheld. And, yeah, I was a little bit surprised. We didn't have a budget, and, let's just keep it at that. We didn't have a budget. But when you and I joined forces after the media club was started, as you mentioned, in August 2015, we made a variety of efforts to get some funds either allocated or collected in some other way, and we managed to come up with equipment and create at least the audio avenue for that. And by saying at least, I mean out of multi-platforms. And it's been going strong ever since. But I was a little bit surprised because even by that time, certainly journalism had, but also public relations in its various iterations under the umbrella of corporate communications had taken on what we call multimedia packaging and messaging. So I was surprised. But, we blazed the trail.
One of the interesting things about creating the Nightly News was that was right about the time when the technologies that we're using, i.e. blog services, podcasting availability, barrier of entry much lower than it used to be. I mean, honestly, there was really no avenue before about 2015. Yes, were there podcasts before 2015? Of course.
Sure.
But it was not as widely adopted as it is today. And so the fact that we can distribute our podcasts via SoundCloud, put them up on YouTube, they can stay there forever. We can keep our last 3 episodes, and all of that is free. That doesn't cost us a dime. And after we fundraised for the equipment that we had and also received some donations for the sports broadcast equipment, it made it so there was no longer the monetary excuse for us not to have something. But the big thing to me was it wouldn't ever have gotten off of the ground if we didn't have that initial core of students who were adamant about getting something off of the ground. Do you recall some of those students maybe you want to give a shout out to?
Undeniably. I agree with that. Absolutely. It would not have been possible without them. And I do remember them at the core, the beginning here. I'm trying to rack my brain a little bit. Christine Fusselman was, I believe, our first media club member. So she was quite active and interested. Put a lot of that midnight oil into the brainstorming about how we might come up with some funding and acquire equipment. Sorry about the mixed metaphor there, but I thought it went well. Also, Candace Livingston, another one of our first members. Kimberly Crone, another one.
You can't forget our first ever president.
Can I? Norman Geary?
No. Mr. Nick Schenkel.
Oh, Nick Schenkel. Yes, I'm sorry. I had Nick floating around in the back of my mind.
I just talked to him not too long ago.
I forgot he was our first president.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for reminding me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Nick, all these people were instrumental, and people who came on board, I mentioned Norm Geary and others in the next year or so after we started the club, all of them instrumental in not only ramping up some production so we had content to present, but took a really active part in helping to acquire equipment, setting up the podcast studio, first in the Boyer House, and, now in here.
Technically first
Alana
right
Hall.
here.
Yeah.
That's right. We were
that's
first
right.
in here.
That's right. We were first in here. Yes, you're right. And then, but the formal studio,
Correct.
Once we got the control board and all of the other things that we needed down in the Boyer House. But yeah, absolutely just hinges in the process. Couldn't have done it without them.
And I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention Nasir Harris,
Nasir Harris,
who is
right.
one of who certainly I would at least throw out there would potentially be a candidate for the Hall of Fame. He was one of the people who got the podcasting off of the ground, and what he offered was experience.
Right, Nasir did, yes. I would have mentioned him coming up, but to put things in perspective, Nasir was a slightly older student. He had some experience in the studio when he had been at Shippensburg. Terrific work ethic. He pitched in whenever he could. Not that others didn't, but he did come with that experience. And, of course, those of you who listen to the podcast probably know that the studio is named the Nasir Harris Podcast Studio.
And I don't know if I do a good enough job making sure I say that on every single episode.
I think people are. I don't know if you have to say it on every episode, but I think people are aware who listen. Yeah.
So early on, we made a pretty big splash, and basically ever since then, we've pretty routinely had one of the highest attended clubs and have always done a lot of great fundraising. I would say 95% of the equipment, materials, etc. that we've done, that we have in the studio, is all funded by the students.
That's true.
So what impact do you think that the fundraising aspect of it, because it's one thing to just come on a podcast or write a story, but that fundraising element is really if it wasn't for our fundraising, we wouldn't be where we are today either.
Mm-hmm. I think a big impact is they realize it's theirs. They own it in a real sense. I mean, not only do they put the work in the research required and participating in the cast, giving their knowledge, their perspective, helping you put the stories together, but when they sit here, I would imagine, when they sit here, I can't say directly what they're thinking, but if I were considering it, I think, hey, I built this. This is mine. This is ours. We own this. We're in command. I think it lends a lot of confidence, which makes the learning experience easier. They learn firsthand not only what they're doing and then practice it, but they know they built it. That says a lot.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things I actually have run into Christine a few times over the past few months, and that is one of the things that she always says. Like, this is when I look back and I see where the nightly news has gone over the past handful of years, I always take a sense of pride because I know I was instrumental. And she's not saying it like to fluff her own ego, but she's saying it like how much it really genuinely meant to start something and then see it after you've moved on. And she's always been a supporter of us and has done some tremendous things with our advisory board panels and just, alumni events that we've had for the comm department. She's always been there. So again, hey, interesting, another potential candidate. Now, as you think back to the last 5 years, I'm wondering if you could maybe point out just a couple of memorable highlights that you have. Again, obviously, there have been many. We've been named Club of the Year. We've both been named Advisor of the Year, Co-Advisors of the Year. And so obviously those are big individual achievements, but what I'm talking about is when you think about the nightly news in perpetuity, what are some of the important moments that you recall that stand out?
A big moment that we just touched on was you and I discussing how we were going to have a media club with no equipment and figuring out where we would find even closet space to do a podcast on a smartphone. So that using our own cameras and trying to secure a computer that we knew we could use whenever we wanted to. That's a big highlight. Another highlight is the efforts that ramped up to the studio. I mean, really, I've never been involved in a club. This is the first college and the only college I've been employed full-time, but I've taught at many part-time. And I can't say that anywhere else I've experienced anything such as this. Now, I know there are instances, but I'm talking about my personal involvement. It was truly a highlight when we were able to get our first piece of equipment or pieces of equipment. And as you mentioned before, those podcasts began here. We're coming to you from the Milano Hall in the Center for Teaching Excellence, where we're situated now after having been in the Boyer House for several years. That's a big one. Our fundraisers are hallmarks. They're real landmarks about, again, how we raise the funds to support the club. We do get some other funding from student government, but most of the funding we generate ourselves. So, soup sales.
And they've always been
They're
a good
legend.
time. Yeah, absolutely. We didn't get to have one this year. We'll definitely be having one this year.
Yeah, pandemic. And I
Of
think
course.
another one is when we first put content too on the web. When we had our site, I'm the print guy. That's my background. I did radio, as you know, a long time ago, but the starting the print aspect online, teaching students how to tailor messages, and then having them have an opportunity for a clip later on.
To me, when I think back about some of the most memorable experiences, obviously, the first season of baseball was so important to me personally, and having the opportunity to work with people like Brian Christiana, Dylan Kleintop, Tyler Coleman, Christian Fulp, and many others on, and I don't want to forget anyone. Those were the main people that I called games with.
It's hard to remember them all.
But it's been such an honor to not only get to work with those students, but get to talk to people's parents who otherwise would not be able to see their children play. And again, we are in an era where the barrier of entry is so low. What we're using, the equipment wasn't necessarily expensive, but 10 years ago, we would have needed 10 times the funding to put together any type of production even close to what we're doing.
That's true.
So that's obviously a big one. And I got to say, this is one I was actually hoping you would bring up. Current co-president Leslie Heimbaugh being given a statewide award for a story that she did on the CPC film series. That, to me, is, and I'm sure to you too, because you're the editor of the blog.
It was, yep.
But that was one that I look back on like, wow, we have arrived. We are a formidable, at least certainly for other colleges our size. But honestly, in that category, Mike, we were going up against schools 5 times our size.
We were, yep. It was absolutely impressive. Leslie is a terrific writer, and she has a particular interest in film and in reviewing them. She's quite knowledgeable. She has great insights, and it was a natch. I mean, she's such a talented writer. And when I add for the size school we are and the scope of our club, which is fairly limited because, well, many reasons. We refer to funding. We have space issues, etc. For the size of the club, we have a lot of talent. And we're not even a journalism program.
Right,
so,
right. And
impressive.
I think that was, and of course, I don't want to miss the first publication that we put out. Sherry Long was instrumental in helping us while a student and as an alumni in putting those out. She has turned the reins over to myself and Mike to design the publication at this point. But, she put out over 20 publications, and honestly, like without her, there would be, and that's so important to me, not only just to share the quality writing that we have with the campus community, but also to have literally physical copies of these students' articles in print that they can share with their families, and those pieces, like, I really love when we get the new publications out and we get to hand those out in the meetings, and just to see the look on people's faces when they look in and they see their name in that publication. It's really important to me, but I always remember the first one.
Yeah, it's very rewarding.
So one more thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the main event is we are looking at the Nightly News Hall of Fame induction. This would be the second opportunity. I think we've decided as a club we're going to try to do this every other year, and that we're going to induct at least 2, but maybe 3 former students, but not only just students, also other people on campus who have helped us along the way, and recognizing those individuals. Obviously, our first time around, we inducted Mr. Norman Geary and also Dr. Linda Fedrizzi Williams, who has always been, and again, this is something we've shared many times, always been super supportive of us. Now, maybe podcast audience fans might wonder why we would induct our president into our Media Club Hall of Fame. So can you draw that line between these two things so people can understand why she was one of the inaugural Hall of Famers?
Sure. As you mentioned, Dr. Fedrizzi Williams, our president, is extremely supportive of the club. And as the president of the college, particularly a college of our size, well, I guess it would be the case at any college, she essentially is our publisher. And she has always kept that line between the administration and editorial control. Editorial control is ours and the club's, and she's never interfered. She's never told us we had to do anything or not do something. We're greatly appreciative of that. Also, she has a background. She has a background in broadcast presentation, radio and television, I think, a little bit. And she certainly appreciates that. So that's why we felt we needed to bring her in to the Hall of Fame because she's famous in that sense, and she's famous to everyone here for the terrific compassion, support, and passion that she has for communication.
And realistically, as a private school, she could come and say anything we publish, yes
Right.
or no.
I want to see everything. Yep.
And fortunately for us, that has never. Not only has that never happened, but in addition, she's given us just such tremendous access.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is a little spoiler, but the cover story in our next publication that'll be out very, very soon will be co-president Janelle Dulac's perspective on how Dr. Linda Fedrizzi Williams handled what her average day was like.
A day in the life of the president.
During a pandemic. And so, we have the utmost appreciation for her. So our first group was Norm Geary and Dr. Linda Fedrizzi Williams. We haven't really gotten to those discussions of who is going to be inducted this year. Obviously, we hope that those people can join us for the celebration. And that's something that we're going to be talking about soon, and we hope to have more information about this. Well, the last thing that we want to talk about here today, and really one of the main reasons we're here, is because we are celebrating the launch of our new CPCnightlynews.com blog. There's some good and some bad. I'm just going to start with the bad. Unfortunately, what had happened just before the new year, if I'm not mistaken.
It was late February, early March.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not sure exactly the day, but
so the middle of winter term, and we're having problems with it, and then we couldn't get logged on, and finally we figured out through with the assistance of marketing that our blog had been compromised beyond repair. Now, this was always sort of a worry because we didn't really have backup copies. We published everything directly to the web, and really the only backup copies we have is just our publications, which obviously we still have the e-copies of those. And what ended up happening was for a while back and forth, we finally realized that everything's gone. Then I was so lucky I was in a class and we were talking about doing internet analysis of how different web pages evolved over time, and I stumbled upon archive.org, and they have archived every page for the most part. I haven't done a deep dive, but almost all that stuff is still there through archive.org.
a lot of it is, yeah.
Now, why that's important is because obviously one of the main reasons that we do this is so students can display their work, whether that's through a portfolio or what have you. So now, yes, some of those people might have to change the links to things, but at least it's still there. But that was over 5 years of every single piece of our content ever.
A lot of content.
And to be lost, it was very sad. But with that, we were able to start a new blog. I think it looks great. We've got a great deal of stories already out there, and along with this podcast, this is going to sort of be our official launch of the new site, and we're really proud of it. So, what were your thoughts going through this whole situation, and how can we move forward with the new site?
My first thought was the one you expressed. Oh my gosh, this is almost 6 years worth of content down the drain. We could see the content. It had been hacked. I suppose, graciously said it was compromised, but, the fact is, and yes, I'm going to say it, some lowlives hacked it, and it was ruined. So the content was filled with ciphers, and, we didn't even want to touch it because who knew what the coding, could have been more malicious coding. Who knows? But that was my first thought. Oh, no. I mean, my first thought was not utilitarian. Oh, my goodness, we don't have a place to put content anymore. My first thought was, this is like 1,000 articles down the drain. So fortunately, we were able to find, as far as we know, a safe spot to retrieve some of that content, if not most of it.
And realistically, it should be there forever if it's through archive.org.
It should be. Yep, it should be. The graphics are lost, but again, we have the content, so students will still have the opportunity to use those as portfolio material. My next thought was, what do we do now? We have to get a new site because we were facilitated. The school helped in getting us a site previously. They played a role, but again, we filled the site. We did all of the peripheral and the core work, really. And that was my next thought. Oh, we got to start from scratch. So it didn't really interrupt the editorial idea generation process. We knew what we wanted to do, but we knew there'd be a lot of steps, and it was a lot of work trying to decide which platform. We're back on WordPress, which is fine. As you mentioned before, it looks great. It has a new...
We have a new logo.
Yeah, we have a new logo. It looks a little more, it's more contemporary. It's crisper looking, easier to select articles. So, yeah, that's good. That is good. So that was a thought. Also, a call out here for Joe Caviston, Central Penn's, let me get this right, digital media strategist. He was instrumental in helping us get a new site and set it up. Now we're populating it. Now, you're saying a celebration in the announcement of the launch. It's going to be a quiet celebration. I've always been suspect of media outlets that call a lot of attention to themselves. So this is it. We're telling you about it.
Right. This is basically the extent of the celebration is this podcast.
Right. There'll be a written announcement. It'll be distributed through the college's own media devices, the Central Penn newsletter, e-newsletter, which goes out to employees and staff, faculty also, all employees, and then Student Central, which goes out to the student population. So it'll be announced in there. Thank you, Leslie Austin and Greg Colburn in marketing, communications, big supporters, and they've been a lot of help in this. So this is our announcement. If you want to look it up, of course, if you're in the college system, most of the people hearing this will be within it. You'll be able to tap in at cpcnightlynews.com. You can set up a shortcut. Please do. Take a look at the content. We have already, I think, about, 15 articles stacked up? Yeah, so they're published, not just stacked, and there's 3 or 4 in the queue. One of the articles that we put up, I guess about 2 weeks ago, launches a series. We haven't done a lot of series. We've done 2 or 3 of them. This one we feel is important because it's our first service series. It has to do with diversity. It was originally titled Layers of Diversity, the first article that came out, written by one of our club members, Ashley Reichard, and now it's been renamed. It'll be called Layers of Community. The second article will be posted sometime this week, so that'll be our debut in the summer with some of that content.
Awesome. Well, I'm got to say that it's certainly been a wild ride. We've done lots of different things, and having to deal with moving everything online. And I will say, as we close, I think one of the best things that I can remember, certainly recently, is the fact that our club still met regularly during COVID.
Right.
And not only that, we've gotten to the point now where we are populating all of our meetings through Teams and allowing us to, maybe we should have done this ahead of time because we really were only sort of an on-campus club, but we've really reached out to some of our evening and online students and gotten them involved as well. So that's certainly something that moving forward we're going to continue to do. So you certainly can email either Professor Olimpi or myself, or run into us at office hours if you'd like more information on joining the Nightly News. But I got to say that to me, this is one of the most rewarding things I do. Obviously, I love being with the students in the classroom, but in terms of outside of that, doing the sports, doing these podcasts, helping, distribute the messages through social media, it's really created something that I'll never forget. And I just hope that the students that we get to work with on a pretty regular basis, I hope that they're taking some wonderful memories away as well.
I think they are. Yeah, it's also one of the big highlights of my everyday coming to work is working with the students, well, in the classroom, but especially Media Club, hands-on, direct career-oriented training and support. It's fantastic.
Well, hopefully it's not another 135 episodes till we have you on again. But
all right, it won't be.
I appreciate it. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I appreciate co-advisor of the Nightly News, Michael Lear-Olimpi, sitting here chatting with us about some of his fondest memories and the Nightly News Hall of Fame and, of course, the launch of our new blog. So, Michael, thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
All right, that's going to be it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. We'll see you again next time.